Welcome to Inspiring Change from OCALI, our forum of stories and connections from our ongoing work of inspiring change and promoting access for people with disabilities. I'm Simon Buer. Many adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities receive support from direct care professionals through different types of day and residential programs. These services can range from assistance with life skills, such as cooking or housekeeping, social skills development, recreational activities, transportation and community outings, job training and placement, and much more. The best of these programs and services provide personalized, customized, and flexible supports in order to meet the individual needs and unique interests of the adults served, and which actively engage and involve them in planning, selecting, and then actually doing the activities. The key to delivering many of these services is this notion of direct support, which almost always involves face-to-face, hands-on, physical proximity, and even contact between the adult and the direct support professionals. So how exactly does this work in the era of social distancing? Here in Ohio, Governor Mike DeWine and Ohio Department of Health Director Dr. Amy Acton recognize the important work of direct support professionals as providing essential activities that should continue during the state's stay-at-home order. However, just like the majority of workers trying to figure out and negotiate these new dynamics, the work and activities of direct support professionals was also directly affected and required some adjustments and changes. We wanted to know more about how a provider agency was dealing with and adapting to these changes and continuing to deliver services during a worldwide pandemic. REM Ohio is an agency that provides a variety of services and supports for people with both intellectual and developmental disabilities all across Ohio. They provide day programs, intermediate care facilities, in-home personal care services, and more. They're also part of the Mentor Network, a national alliance of providers focused on community-based services in more than 30 states across the country. So there's a local focus and a national connection to their work. Buffie LaBelle is a regional director at REM Ohio, and Heather Reynolds is the program supervisor. Their office is located in Akron, and they serve over 200 people in the eastern region of the state, mostly in Summit County. Buffie, could we maybe just start with you? Can you just give us, for people who don't know about REM Ohio, can you just give a brief description of what your agency does and who you serve?
Sure. We provide a variety of supports to folks with developmental disabilities, mostly adults, so folks over 18. We do HPC or homemaker personal care services, both drop-in supports in like family homes, but also in residential settings, group homes. Yes, and we also have some day program services for folks with developmental disabilities, and some homes and a couple of day programs specifically for folks with autism.
What did your services look like prior to COVID-19, the services and supports that you provide for the adults and the people that you work with?
Well, our services in the day centers, we have a lot of activities going on both within the centers and out in the community. Some of that being supported employment, some of it being just social, going to the zoo, library, spending time there with some of the different activities the libraries offer, parks, going to movies, also, working with folks within the center. We have a yoga instructor that comes in, and then we also have music therapy that comes in, and those are both once a week things. There's also an art teacher that comes to one of our centers, and we not only do we go out into the community with folks, but we'll go to each other's centers to participate in some of those things. Parties, birthday parties, parties centered around holidays, and also, working with folks to increase their independence and self-care, as well as kind of care for their environment. So a lot of that kind of in multiple environments, even though it's provided by the day program.
Yeah, so a really vibrant and very active series of outings and activities. Probably a lot of those have been severely impacted by what's been happening the last few weeks or so, I would imagine.
Very much so.
Absolutely.
Even before the stay-at-home order went into full effect, we were limiting outings in the community, keeping folks at the center, trying to keep folks socially distant from each other at the center. And that just kind of led us into the stay-at-home order, where then the center closed down. So it's been very challenging for folks.
Yeah. Okay, I see. So you were already moving in that direction before the stay-at-home order was announced. When did you start that?
Probably about 2 weeks before the stay-at-home order. Yes. So we were starting to limit things and try to just in an attempt to keep everyone safe and healthy. And then our center's last day was March 20th, which was the Friday before the stay-at-home order actually came out. At that point, we had a number of folks throughout our centers who were already self-quarantining and not coming in. So attendance was pretty low by that point anyway.
Was it really? Yeah. Yeah. So you're kind of moving in that direction anyway.
Sure.
Yeah. Could each of you talk about kind of your thoughts and your emotional reaction in those early days when it became clear like what was happening and the impact that it was going to have both on the people that you serve as well as your coworkers and employees of REM Ohio?
I think for me, my reaction was more, okay, so services are going to look different, and who's going to need what, how can we help people? And when I say that, I don't just mean the folks that we provide services to, but, my coworkers and my supervisors and the staff that I'm responsible to lead. I was like, okay, this is going to be different, and we know it is, so how can we support each other? And what, when we talked about the center, was our last day would be that Friday, the conversations, and I have to really give kudos to the staff that I work with, that it was, okay, so we're going to be working with folks in their homes. What can we take from the center to those homes to kind of keep activities going? What kind of stuff is here? Whose home am I going to be working in? What are some of their favorite things? Let's take that to that person's home, and that way we can kind of continue some kind of continuity, some kind of familiarity with what already happens during the day on those days. So definitely nervous and just, worried about, it's hard to see people that you don't know become ill, but worry about the ones that you do know.
So for me, I think my emotional reactions have been kind of all over the place. I've been, I try to be calm and the voice of reason for the folks that I support and lead, but this has been very challenging. We all worry about wanting to keep our individuals healthy, wanting to keep our staff healthy. So that's kind of what drives us and gets us through it. Like Heather, I've been very impressed with the staff's resilience and ability to carry things on and keep things moving in just a different way of doing things. And then there's, always the fear of we're not going to have any staff to work, everyone's going to be sick. But, thus far everyone's been pretty healthy and do what they need to do to stay healthy both themselves, so to make that they are concentrating on making sure they're not bringing things in, to the houses. So that's all we can do at this point.
And so talk to me a little bit about that. Like what kind of changes have you made to ensure both the safety of your staff members as well as those they're working with?
Right. So they're checking their temperatures to make sure they don't have a fever when they come in. They're wearing their PPE. They're working on just trying to work with our individuals on social distancing, which is challenging with some of our folks because personal space isn't really on some of their lists. But we try.
Yeah. It's a hard thing for a lot of us, I think, to figure out and to work through. And it's definitely a new social dynamic that we're all trying to figure out. I was going to ask Buffy, do you have enough supplies, equipment to support your staff?
I would say at this point, yes. We are because we're part of the Mentor Network. That's our parent company, and they have been able to secure masks. It took some time to get them in the quantity that we need, but we now have those in the houses for staff to be making sure they're wearing a mask all the time when they're working instead of just if somebody's sick. So yeah, right at this moment we're set pretty good, but it's a worry.
Yeah, sure.
Supplies are slow to come when you do place an order, so trying to think of in advance to make sure we have what we need.
Yeah,
is a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. Can we go back to talking about a few more examples of maybe the impact on some of your programs and services and some of the changes or adaptations that you've had to make?
Sure. I mean, one of the changes is, having restricted visitation in the group homes. And that's been challenging for a number of families who, like to come over frequently. We started off early on just doing a screening form, but as things have progressed and we've worked our way through this curve, we reached a point where we cut off visitation altogether, but we tried to do as much as we can virtually with phone calls and Skype and anything else we can do to support continued contact with their loved ones.
Mm. So you do you help set those up with the families, the Skype calls, and coordinate those?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. No, that was going to be my next question. If there were anything that you had done using technology or providing any kind of virtual support, either directly or with families.
The other thing that we're doing is we have a virtual calendar that we put together, like an activity calendar, that we've sent out to all the houses so that staff working can, have some other things that they can do at the house. So if they have all the houses have a Chromebook, so they can click on a link to go tour a museum or a zoo or any of those types of things that we find. And our music therapist, the Groovy Garfield company, Dave sends us links to some music therapy videos. So every week we send those out to the houses so that everyone, whether they attend our day center or another center, everyone in our homes is able to benefit from those videos as well. So
that's great. Nice. Yeah. So it kind of takes the place of some of those activities or outings that otherwise people were enjoying. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're short little videos, but they help break up the day.
Yeah. Break up the monotony of the day. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. We've done gift bags, or like treat bags, I guess, where we put different activities together for the houses, some word searches, adult coloring books, sidewalk chalk, all of that, and delivered that to all of the houses just before Easter.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about any of the challenges that you had in in the folks that you work with and explaining to them what was happening and trying to help navigate the changes in schedule or the inability to go out anymore? Like how has that been?
Yeah, Heather, you want to start with that?
It was initially pretty rough. It's still a little bit bumpy from day to day. We basically worked with the Summit County SLP. She sent out some communication boards for some folks that's the best form of communication with them to kind of walk through what was happening. And then also...
I'm sorry, Heather, you said the Summit County the speech language pathologist?
Yeah, she had early on when this was kind of, we knew it was coming, she had sent some things out to help us communicate that. And then basically, prior to us shutting down, at least in my center with the folks that we work with here, tried to have those conversations based on their communication. That, it's kind of like a vacation. It's a vacation. It's a spring break type thing, and we will see each other again. But we're going to take a break for a while, and then being assigned to the homes and working with folks in their homes once it did get started. Reassuring and talking about, to the level that they wanted to talk about it. What's happening, why is it happening, and what can we do in the meantime? The center, now some of the folks have understood it, been frustrated with it, and others we have to, on a daily basis, remind that no, we don't go to the day center today, but we set up then a routine for them that is based on day programming type things, so that there at least is that kind of difference between their daytime and their evening. It doesn't all just kind of clump together. Try to separate it a little bit.
Yeah, I think we could all of us use those lines of distinction, because it's challenging when you're in the same spot all the time to know what the difference is between home life and activity life, or employment life or education life, when it's all in one spot. It's hard.
Well, and it's not just that their day program's closed. McDonald's is closed, the library's closed.
Right.
Not taking folks to the store, so everything's closed, and that's really hard for folks to understand.
Yeah.
And cope with and deal with.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
We encourage folks to, maybe go for a ride, from limited, go through a drive-through here or there, to get, a treat. And then, we've said that, they can go to parks as long as they're not crowded. Or just like the gentleman that Heather works with likes to just go for a walk in his neighborhood, and that's been doable. So, yeah. Well, and just even a little physical activity, even if it's in the house, is really important, I think, for all of us. So trying to encourage that where we can as well.
And using up some of those extra spaces, sometimes when you're in a house, maybe you don't go to the basement very often, but it's quite a large basement, or you've got some rooms upstairs that don't get used as much. You kind of repurpose those spaces to be like a yoga studio or a movie theater, or, you kind of get creative so that you're not staying in the same 4 rooms for the time that you're in the house. And if the weather ever does break, we can get creative in the backyards and on the porches,
Yeah. Yeah, but that's great too, to use that creativity and that innovation with what you already have, and kind of rethinking the use of the space that you have.
Yeah, pull out the Christmas lights and create a dance studio.
I love it. What about, we kind of touched on it briefly, but what has been conversations, interactions that you've had with the families? You kind of mentioned helping to coordinate some Skype or some virtual visits. Are there anything else any other interactions or things that you're doing with families to kind of help them also go through what we're all going through? Some
of the folks that we provide services to at the day program, but we don't provide any residential services to, so they're with their families. It's just reaching out and talking to them. Hi, how are you? And kind of keeping that relationship going, and then kind of seeing if there's anything we can do to help them. I mean, Buffy encouraged all of us to kind of think outside the box. And so, just kind of, there's one gentleman that we work with that he absolutely loves Play-Doh. So, we're going to drop some Play-Doh off to his house that, he may be stuck at home, but, maybe some Play-Doh might keep him busy for a couple of days and make it happen. So, just kind of in addition to, making sure that the folks that we provide services to residentially, that we're also thinking about the ones that we only see during the day. And so how can we keep that relationship going?
And residentially, I think that's kind of a case-by-case basis. For the most part, families have been very understanding of what's going on. Thankful that we've taken the precautions that we are. But, worried and scared and want to make sure that the individuals are safe and happy and don't feel that they've been abandoned by their family. So, we try to kind of work through each situation individually to see how we can make that work for them.
And I understand that DODD has allowed some flexibility in the rules right now regarding services and environments. Has that had any impact on what you've been able to do or how you've been able to do it?
Well, we were able to offer one of the folks who live with their family that attend our day program the opportunity to come to one of the houses there in the beginning before shutdown. So his parents could continue to work because they're both essential employees. And I think that they were appreciative of that. They never took us up on that opportunity. They're sheltering him in place, which is fine, but we're constantly looking for ways that we can support folks. I think what's probably helped the most for us has been some of the flexibility with the hiring and onboarding process, so we can get folks started a little faster. Because we're still hiring. We were in a staffing crunch before this, and this hasn't helped any.
And what positions are you hiring?
Mostly direct support positions. Mm-hmm. Although we have a program director position open and a program supervisor position as well. Wow.
So in the midst of all these, so many people with losing their jobs and stuff, that's kind of a bright spot to hear that that there are positions available.
Right. And I think another bright spot is that we've been able to, we've been trying to use the technology more in our hiring and training process, so this has kind of forced that issue. So, our trainer, the guy who does most of our training, is kind of immune compromised due to some medical issues, but he's still working. He's just doing his training from home. And we're using technology to make that happen. So those types of things have, kind of pushed the envelope that we haven't had to deal with in the past.
As long as we're kind of talking about staff, I wanted to ask, is there anything extra that you're doing there at REM Ohio to kind of support staff members with their physical or even their mental well-being?
We've done things like ordered pizza one night for all of the different houses, so staff didn't have to cook. The Mentor Network has been great about sending out daily emails from different departments on things that they're doing to support us. Things like our employee assistance programs, things like just resources for some mental health counseling. The network has put together a program that if staff are struggling financially because of COVID, or even one of the houses, the individuals who are in like a community-based home, if they're struggling with groceries or something, we have a kind of a grant program that can help provide some financial relief that way as well. So,
yeah, and even in saying that too, kind of that the informal stuff. We have some really great supervisors here, and they really listen, when we speak, even if it's just a little pick me up, a little pat on the back, or, just a little motivation, and just kind of working together and bouncing ideas off of each other. I mean, I think that was truthfully fall under that as well. It's not some of those informal things I think are just as important, if not more important at times, and should really be mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And those ways of affirming and just letting people know that what they do is valuable and that there's this support system behind them, and really that we're all in this together, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Buffy, you kind of mentioned it a couple of times, but could you just explain what the Mentor Network is?
Sure. The Mentor Network is our parent organization. So the Mentor Network is a nationwide organization of healthcare providers. So REM Ohio is part of the Mentor Network. There's Ohio Mentor is our kids foster care program. They're part of the Mentor Network. And we have rehab services, TBI services, neuro-restorative services. There's all kinds of different programs that operate under the Mentor Network umbrella.
Gotcha. And that's the national umbrella organization for. So most of the members are similar to you, but located in other states.
Right. There's some that do DD services and some that don't have anything to do with DD, but they maybe focus on aging or restorative care, that type of thing.
Yeah. So it's a wide range of services and populations.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And they've worked really hard to ensure we all have what we need, PPE-wise and support-wise, to get through this.
That alone makes it sound like a really valuable national partnership. What about some of your local partnerships and alliances?
What I have been impressed with is just in this area in Summit County here, just how everyone with a stake in the game is really trying to work collaboratively. The Summit County Board of DD today is even having a donation drive, collecting things from the community that could be used in the houses, things like PPEs and cleaning supplies and even activity type of supplies and that type of stuff. And Summit County is the biggest county that I work in, but most of the counties are doing very similar types of things. We've got county boards going in and bringing food into different houses to help relieve staff. I mean, there's just story after story of more collaboration than I've seen in a long time. Our provider trade association, OPRA and OCA, and those types of organizations are working very hard to help impact funding, but also to help just with getting supplies that are needed and using some of that group buying power to help make sure folks can get what they need. So, I mean, everybody has really been working really well together. That's great.
That's really great. I mean, this is going to require long-term sustained collaboration and partnerships. I mean, that's the mantra that we keep seeing everywhere, right? We're in this together. And what about, are there activities or practices that are occurring now that you think you'll continue going forward?
Well, I think, we've dabbled more into virtual stuff than we have in the past, and I see that continuing, well beyond this crisis, because it is very helpful, and I think it's helped everybody kind of realize that even under, quote, normal circumstances, we can do a lot more virtually, just to offer more experiences and supports for folks.
Buffy, I know REM Ohio also offers supports and coaching and assistance with placement for job seekers. How have those services been impacted by the shutdown?
We have a very small employment services program here in Summit County. REM does. But I talked to our supervisor today, Barry, and he just helped somebody get hired at Sam's Club. He said the retail stores cleaning jobs, anything in like a hospital, they're all still hiring. So he has, been able to help folks get some jobs or get some hours increased even that way. Some folks, of course, have lost jobs or been furloughed or laid off. But there's opportunities if they're willing to look in a different area. And that's kind of the rub, because people are scared, the individuals themselves. I don't want to work at Walmart, or there's too many people there. And their family members, too, are worried about that. So, which is the same fears that all of us have about going to the store or anything else. So it's a delicate balance. Another bright spot that I haven't really talked about is our Ohio Shared Living Program. We have a pretty big, vibrant adult foster care program here in Ohio. And with day programs being closed and the shelter in place, our mentors have done an outstanding job with their individuals home 24/7, keeping folks busy, engaged, and getting through this crisis. And that has definitely been a bright spot.
And can you explain that Ohio Shared Living Program a little bit, Buffy, for people who may not be familiar with it?
Absolutely. So it's an adult foster care program. So folks with developmental disabilities that are looking for, a place to live may move into a home with a mentor, is what we call them, and their family. So they have their own bedroom. They participate in all the activities that the family participates in, and just become part of that family unit. It's a very nice service and works well for many of our individuals.
That's great. That's really great. One thing that I did want to ask both of you, we're calling this series of podcasts that we're doing Voices, Visions, and Victories. And so I'm particularly interested to hear from each of you, like, what would you say is your victory right now?
I think our biggest victory right now, from my standpoint, is that everyone's healthy and doing pretty well. Our incident reports are much lower than even normal, which is not what I expected would happen going into this. So folks are doing well, which tells me that staff are keeping folks engaged and busy and doing a good job working through this with individuals.
And I guess I would say that I look at it as a victory when, the amount of pictures that I'm getting from the staff that have gone to these different homes to work, and I see the things that they've been doing, and the smiles on folks' faces, the smiles on staff faces, seeing people not just step up and do what's expected, but to just put everything into it and do more than is expected. With call-offs and people being willing to step up and cover those shifts and continue to be positive about it. I think that's just really awesome to see. Positive energy that's coming out of a very negative situation, I think, is a victory.
You're listening to Inspiring Change from OCALI, our forum of stories and connections from our ongoing work of inspiring change and promoting access for people with disabilities. I'm your host and producer, Simon Buer. I've been talking with Buffie LaBelle and Heather Reynolds of REM Ohio, an agency that provides an array of services and supports for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Buffie and Heather serve the eastern region of Ohio, primarily in Summit County. But as was mentioned, REM Ohio has locations throughout the state and is also a partner in the Mentor Network, a national alliance of providers and agencies committed to offering high-quality, community-based services in over 30 states. You can learn more about REM Ohio's programs and services at rem-oh.com. That's rem-oh.com. Be sure to subscribe to Inspiring Change wherever you get your podcasts. And if you or someone you know needs an accessible version of this podcast, go to ocali.org/podcasts and click on the link to Inspiring Change. While you're there, you can also visit our sister program, From My Perspective, produced by our friends and colleagues in the Family and Community Outreach Center here at OCALI. Thanks again for listening, because the need for change is everywhere, and inspiration can come from anywhere. I'm Simon Buer. See you soon.